Hey guys, welcome once again. This is Family Matters. We are so excited to be able to speak with you on today. I'm O'Neill.
And I'm Georgia.
I'm Josh.
I'm Tim.
And we're the Salmons. Today we're going to be talking about 10 positive family communication rules. I don't know about you, but every now and then we all would agree that communication can be a challenge.
Absolutely.
In any family, whether it's a dynamic of just two individuals conversating or like us, four at the table at any given moment. And so communication can be problematic. It can also be revealing. When it comes to communication, it's already been said statistically that 7% of our communication is through words. The rest being communicated in part, 38% given to how you say something, that is the tone, and 55% due to body language.
That's right.
Now I just imagine today while we're given to emails, text messaging, communications through social media or whatever, in turn, how much of that is possibly even dismissed.
Absolutely.
How challenging is it for you all when using those platforms? I think, and which do you prefer? Let's go there.
Well, for me, I think because of how many people, outside of our family that we also speak to, I tend to use different platforms. For our family, I'm finding a lot more that while we're in the home, if we're in different spaces, text messaging seems to work versus me hollering and yelling. And if I do holler upstairs or downstairs, that tone that you just mentioned can come into play where they're in their room, but they can't discern, necessarily what my tone is. Is it an emergency or not? So sometimes texting is better, and I could just say, hey, when you have a moment, come see me. So depending on what I need, I find that I use different streams to communicate.
We're going to offer you guys here in a minute some pointers along the way on how you can, again, affirm some positive practices in your home. Let's take the top one, the first one, thinking before you speak. One of the things that I think I regard right away is the fact that, and we come back again to body language, it's not just a matter of taking an account for what words you use, but even in the matter of how you express that. Body language says a lot. I think it's important that we pause and really kind of gather our thoughts, because sometimes we start preemptively. We engage a conversation without really thinking it all the way through. One would say without the end in mind.
For me, thinking before I speak also means, am I getting ready to say something that might offend someone else? Am I getting ready to say something out of anger or how I'm feeling in the moment? So pausing to think about my thoughts before they come out of my mouth would be my explanation of thinking before you speak. How do I feel in the moment, and how is it going to affect what comes off my tongue?
To kind of add on thinking before I speak is also thinking, like, is it the right time? Is it the right time to, are they in the right mindset? Am I in the right mindset? Am I saying the right thing in the right area? Kind of just putting all those things into place, because now everybody's on the same page.
That's right.
So.
And it's kind of funny because nowadays, at least in this season, we're encouraging families in turn to take advantage of the time they have available to them to communicate, to build relationship, and for the most part, intimacy. And that means they have to sit at a table,
That's
they have
right.
to be able to put aside whatever they would be accustomed to doing to take advantage of the time available.
Absolutely.
But then if you have not really developed that skill set, how do you really move forward in turn? So I think this is just vital and probably the right time for this kind of discussion.
It is.
How about this? Number 2 on the list would be to tell the truth. Of course, everyone has their own truth.
It's important to not only tell your truth, but feel like you're able to tell your truth. And I think that's about really in your families cultivating an atmosphere where you all feel comfortable opening up, all feel comfortable saying how you feel, which I think that's a part of thinking before you speak as well, because you have to cultivate an atmosphere and know the time, like Tim said, to then be able to fully feel comfortable telling your truth. So I think it all really works together at the end of the day.
That's very good. I also think that works for marriage as well. It's going to be hard to produce children that tell their truth if, as a couple, we're not telling our truth to each other, or depending as adults, the background in which you were raised, did you have the opportunity to speak to your parents? Did you feel comfortable speaking? Because if I didn't feel comfortable speaking as a child to my parents, I may stop my children from feeling comfortable speaking to me.
I think one of the things, and just as Josh mentioned, and Tim actually echoed it earlier when we were making the first point about thinking before you speak, he said judging timing.
Yes.
Sometimes in telling the truth, we have to ascertain not just where we are, but where is the person as well, because sometimes that individual may not be in the best place to receive. Number 3 on the list, respecting each other's viewpoints. I think let's be real about it, guys. Right away, I want to make a disclaimer here that each of us have ownership over how we see life and how we view things that are occurring in our lives. And I think it's important that we as parents give them the brevity or the opportunity at best to express their point of view.
Yes.
So, but of course, the idea is to not just have ownership over your feelings, but also to be able to share, one's perspective on whatever the matter. How valuable is that to you all?
Very valuable. If I'm respecting your viewpoints, my son's viewpoints, my husband's viewpoint, I have to make sure I'm not trying to be right all the time, but I'm more focused on securing the relationship I have with my children and making sure they feel like they can be heard. I, as a mom, have to make sure their view matters. Even though I don't understand it, it may not make a minute of sense to me, but I have to ensure that everyone on our team feels like a team player and their view matters.
While you're watching us, we want you to entertain, sharing your comments, giving us your perspective,
Please
your
do.
point of view. We know we're talking about communication, and it means a lot to different individuals. Some of us have different communication styles, methods about approaching, or how we approach rather communication.
Right.
But we're just trying to maybe add some value to what you're doing at present, and hopefully you learn a thing or two along the way.
That's
likewise. All right, how about this one? Asking directly for what you want, desire, or even need.
I think a lot of times, especially with our families, because we've grown up around them, or as kids growing up around them, we spend so much time together, we can assume that they are gonna know exactly what you need, and read your mind. In a sense. When the truth of the matter is, everybody's growing at a different pace and going through life at a different pace, and sometimes you don't always know what others have on their plate or what's on others' mind. So it's just about being, open and honest and truthful about how you feel, and just being direct with it. Let the person know, if they offended you. Let the person know, this is bothering me. This is what's on my mind. And it's not always even the bad moments. Sometimes the good moments. Let the people know that you're proud of them. Let people know that you care for how they feel. Actually being direct with it. That way, it brings that assurance.
Listening to yourself is the next one, guys. Listening to yourself. We've got to be better at paying attention to our own selves, and even how, not just in a matter of the words we use, but how fast we speak, what tone we use. I think it's important that we be good examiners of how we communicate. Now, let me ask you this. Just go around real quickly. What's your communication style, Josh? Do you find yourself being more direct, or how do you tend to communicate with any one of us?
It's a balance between, and like we said, we don't always want people to read our minds, but sometimes expressing it through body language is definitely something that I tend to do. So if I want to be around you, I tend to get around you, but sometimes not always picking that up. But then also there's the other side where it's very direct and very straightforward to, this is how I feel.
I think I'm more direct. Let's make the point and try to get to them as soon as I can. Not always the right time, but I'm more of a direct person.
I'd probably say I'm more indirect, only because I'm not much of a talker in a sense, but if I do need to get something off my chest, or I do have a certain feeling, I definitely will come to you and let you know how I feel.
I think probably because I lead in so many areas, believe it or not, contrary to that would be that I almost often want to be approached rather than being the one approaching others, simply because I'm either, for the most part in everyday life, giving out information, giving out instruction that to some end I think there are times where I just want to feel needed or even wanted. And that may not speak to everything, but quite naturally, we all have our own way of communicating.
That's right.
And I think that needs to be observed, acknowledged, and in a lot of ways, appreciated. Because if we were all in one and the same, then we have to wonder how will we meet in each other's needs as well. So that's awesome, guys. How about this one? Letting others speak. Now, this is where most conflict occurs because everyone wants to be heard, and most conflict comes out of selfish ambitions. So how important it is to have your voice be heard. We know about your emotions, your feelings. We talked about owning your truth, but now we're talking about letting the other person have that opportunity to share.
It's very important because I'd say it's a bias situation. You're not always right, and you may not notice that until you actually hear the other person speak. So by hearing the other side, it kind of allows you to open up your point of view, your mindset, so that you may come to the conclusion, oh, I was wrong, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Thank you for telling me. But if you never let them speak, then you won't come to that conclusion.
We would love to hear from you on perhaps two points being made that really spoke to you. So for that, we're going to ask you to just make a comment and leave us some feedback on that. Which two stood out for you that you believe that you're going to take away from this and run on home with, and maybe make some changes as well. Now, I'm gonna set this one up. Not being a psychic in turn, and it kind of goes back to being able to be heard and listening to the other person, and of course not being a mind reader. But a lot of times needs are on the table. There are circumstances that are needing to be dealt with, and we can even allow ourselves to begin to make assumptions in turn. I think one of the things that I want to present as thought is not making an assumption in thought or about somebody else's feelings or so. When it comes to your own feelings, I'm curious, where do they go when it comes to being offended? Let's talk about that.
Feelings can take us a lot of places, both parents and children, and I think the more time we spend together is the better we will be aware of how to handle how someone is feeling. Even if they're quiet or they're loud, playing a lot of music. We have both instances in our home, but that's going to be very important in this situation. Now, offense can easily come if that psychic mentality comes into the picture where I feel like I already know what's wrong with you. I already know why you slammed your door. I already know why you didn't come down for dinner. No, we really don't know. And when we do that, what we're really saying is you can predict every day in advance. And in all truth, we can't predict each day in advance. Every day is different. Every day is new. How a person is feeling. Actually, I think it's important that we give each other the benefit of the doubt in making sure every day is new in your home. So what you may perceive as an emotion in someone tomorrow may not be because of what happened yesterday. It may be something totally different. It could have been a nightmare they had. But I think it's important that we don't take offense to how each other's feelings, but do what we said at the beginning of this broadcast, communicate and talk about what might be going on. You may find out more than you even thought was taking place.
Hey guys, we're almost at the end of this broadcast. Believe it or not, we've been enjoying our time with you.
Yes.
But before we go, we want to leave you with the last three.
So the next one is being open about your feelings. I think being open about your feelings is very important, very, very important, especially for your own mental health. I think when you're not open about your feelings, you carry them innately.
Oh, wow.
And because of that, when you carry that weight all day, it affects a lot of areas in your life. It affects your family relationships, it affects your friendships, but it also affects your own productivity. It's hard to work, it's hard to get things done when you're carrying emotions. So be open with them. And honestly, if there's anybody that you should be able to trust, it should be your family. But again, that also comes from us all respecting each other's feelings, creating an atmosphere where you can tell your truth, and also listening to yourself.
Well, Tim, now you're pretty much a good listener, so because we compliment you on that all the while. So can you just speak to that, the importance of listening or having good listening skills?
So for me, when someone tells me something, I always want it to be heard and actually taken into real life. So if I don't want it to go from one ear out the other, I want it to stay in you, and I want you to actually hear it. So by listening, I think it helps with our relationship. It draws us closer because you're actually noticing, okay, hey, I don't like this. Hey, I like this. Can you do this a little better? So if I actually tell you something, I want you to take it and run with it. I don't want you just to listen to it, maybe do it for a day, a week, and then drop it. But being a good listener, I think definitely builds up your relationship with others.
Yeah. So not just hearing, but actively listening and applying it to your life.
Yeah.
So in a close, I'll share this, and this goes with, I guess, an accumulation of everything we've talked about today. I want to encourage our family and those that are watching us to take time, especially in this season, to enhance your communication. Don't just keep talking to each other the way you've been talking if you realize that your family can do better. So enhance it. How can you enhance it? In other words, improve it. Ways that you can do that is by seeking out clarification from each other when you speak. All right, so my son Joshua or Timothy may share something with me from their heart. I'm doing my active listening skills. I'm trying to hear their viewpoint. But before you go to speak as a parent or as a sibling, or even as a child to your parents, before you go to speak, make sure you understood what was said, and that the easy way to do that is maybe ask a question like, so what I'm hearing you say, Timothy, is this is how you feel. So what I'm doing in that moment is validating or making sure what I heard is in line with what he said versus assuming I comprehended what he said well. Comprehension is totally different from listening. So in asking simple questions like that, or repeat what the person said to them to make sure you're validating what they were trying to get across, because emotions can take us on journeys we were not prepared to go on. So that kind of dialogue, that's what I mean by enhancing our communication. Don't take everything for face value in this season, but let's dive a little deeper into each other's communication styles. We got a lot of time on our hands now. and let's be more intentional.
Yeah. Listen, guys, we're so grateful again that you chose to be a part of this conversation. Believe it or not, that while we were, considering you, we were being enriched by this experience as well. So thank you, Josh. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Georgia. We're so excited. You've been a part of the Family Matters broadcast, and we're so excited for you. Do us a favor again, like, subscribe, follow us, if you would, on Facebook, and of course, subscribe right here on this channel. Thank you so much. Again, go ahead and check out the rest of our broadcasts. Thank you so much.